All right. Let's get fired up here.
I'm fired up.
All right. Hello and welcome to the very first Read Rothbard Podcast. We have a website with lectures, books, articles, and this podcast at readrothbard.com. My name is Daniel, and my co-host and collaborator, Robert Johnson. Say hello to the people, Robert.
Hello, the people.
How appropriate did you mention the people? Because our very first podcast, which we recorded actually this portion a couple of weeks ago, is about your favorite and mine, Bernie Sanders.
Feel the burn, baby.
Feel the burn. So, we're just going to drop you guys into this conversation that we had a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. So here you go. Enjoy.
Have a blast.
Yeah, it's terrible. So speaking of my cousin, he just did do the second round of the caucus for Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie. Nice pull, buddy. That's I forget. That's a movie from the 90s, I want to say.
Yeah, that's Tenacious D, man. Oh, jeez.
Fucking cock-ass!
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that one in there.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean that he did the second round of caucuses?
Well, the first round is, all the, elementary schools and libraries and stuff, and then this is the people who were nominated at that level, a few weeks ago, now going to more regional type areas, and then, I guess, pledging delegates to whoever.
So is he on it? So it's like a third round and a fourth round, and it finally goes up to the primary or something, and then he's done, or what? Any idea?
I don't pretend to understand it.
Yeah.
I just know that they start out at small events, and then they start merging, like they nominate people to go and represent the viewpoint of the majority of that group at the next level. And I don't know how many levels there are.
Is this the sort of thing like where he has a whole bunch of friends that are all like Bernie supporters, and then he like gives speeches, and then it's nominated to be a Bernie pro-voter guy? Or I don't understand the problem.
It's similar to that. From what I understand, you get like a minute or less, depending on however many people want to talk and how much time there is. But yeah, people, get on the mic for like however long, and then out of that process, then people get selected through some kind of a ballot measure thingy majiggy. I mean, I almost hate talking about it at all just because it lends credence to the whole fucking farce.
Yep. Me too.
And I don't.
But this is the theme for today, right? We're taking Bernie to the woodshed.
We should take him to the woodshed.
We're doing it. We're gonna go down this list.
I don't know how far back I gotta go, but there's a very good Bernie thing on here as well. Let me see.
Naysaying. Yeah. Everything I create.
Oh, there we go.
You piece of shit. And when I'm singing out, shut up. Fuck you! You fucking dick! Always naysaying!
Here.
Everything I create! You piece of shit! You create something! Like inward singing! You fucking shit! You fucking sit in your tower! You fucking nap! What's funny? You fucking bitch! Fucking fuck out! Fucking cock ass!
Was that just off their album, or was that actually in a movie?
That's off their album, yeah.
Okay.
But I thought that was appropriate because, you don't create.
Right, you create. That's right.
Yeah, because I sent you that card with the Bernie plan, right? It was called the Bernie plan.
Bernie Sanders plan. Yep. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Sorry I used up a bunch of your bandwidth sending that to you, but I didn't want to type all that shit out, man.
No. That's fine. Images aren't the end of the world. In fact, I'm doing really well for this month. So I'm still not going to just go crazy and watch a bunch of videos, but I can look at images.
All right, cool. So I just pulled it out. Got it up in front of me now. Cool.
Let's do this. So Bernie Sanders, our favorite socialist, who, gosh, there was a.
Wait. Are you saying you don't like Hillary the socialist or Ted Cruz the socialist? Or
No, I love them both. I love them all. I'm just saying that he's our favorite, my current favorite, all right? He's the socialist doer. I was watching a Borowski video the other day, and she was doing some Bernie video, and she pulled up some old Bernie clip where he's just talking about how awesome redistributing wealth is. He's just like, just said it. He's just like, yeah, it's just great.
Fucking chaos!
He's basically saying, yeah, theft is awesome. Theft is awesome, right? I mean, when you steal from people and give to other people, it's just, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing's wrong with theft. So the very first part of the Bernie Sanders plan is to get money out of politics. And then the explanation for that is to prevent billionaires from buying our elections. So if you agreed with the political process, and if you didn't see it as a coercive action to force your views on other people, to put a gun in somebody else's face to do what you wanted them to do, then I could see that being a purely, hey, people aren't being influenced, people are truly listening to the plan of the politicians, to their policies, and making an informed decision, and you're not being influenced by some evil ad campaign, then sure, getting money out of politics is a good thing. But I would go one step further and saying politics shouldn't exist, and therefore there wouldn't be any money in politics. So in that sense, I totally agree with the guy.
Yeah, I'd take it a step further. I don't think he goes far enough. I'd say get politics out of money.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's another thing they do. Yeah.
But yeah, his whole get money out of politics, I mean, not only is it, like you were saying, if you bought into the whole scam system to begin with, but I don't know if he really holds to this, because he does keep asking for money, and they always spend a ton of money, and not to mention the time and effort of all of these people to go and do all these cockasses and other events.
Fucking cockass!
They're not out creating anything of value. They're wasting all this time and effort and energy and attention.
Yeah, I like how there's no contradiction here where it says, get money out of politics, then down at the bottom it says, donate.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he doesn't want money from billionaires, though. I think that this whole billionaires buying elections thing is a bit emphasized or overplayed. It's like the boogeyman. It's like you got to have a bad guy.
So, yeah, so the Koch brothers are essentially the boogeyman with that, right?
Right. Now, I don't want to say that there isn't some influence out there that, perhaps predetermines these outcomes, but I don't think it really matters because these people are so dissimilar. I mean, so similar. It doesn't matter which one of these clowns wins.
Well, and also, you're talking about keeping the system and the process pure, as if you're not, like, you don't want to corrupt this beautiful, pristine thing, right? As if the whole thing isn't corrupt already. So you're saying, no, we want to keep this beautiful, clean, non-violent, non-coercive process. You don't want to corrupt that by introducing money. No, the process is already corrupt. I'm sorry.
Yeah, its inherent nature of being is corrupt. But even beyond that, let's assume that there isn't what the statists would call corruption going on. Or no, wait, I'm sorry. Let's assume the other way. Let's assume that that the problem is that there is what statists would call corruption. Like, oh, they're buying votes or they're, doing backhanded deals. Isn't that reason enough to say that the system doesn't work? Let alone the moral argument. I mean, it's clear that politicians who arrive in office with very little money and then they, come out of office with millions of dollars, that something's going on.
Well, sure, and it's ridiculous. I mean, you could just say, well, yeah, there's money in politics and get it out of there. Well, what is his plan? What does he propose to make this happen? Obviously, it's going to be some law, as if people follow laws anyway, as if there probably are already laws against these backroom deals. That's why they do them in the room, right? So, I mean, what exactly is he proposing here? Elect me because I'm uncorruptible, or stick a gun in everybody's face at this juncture, and then that will prevent people from doing what we don't want them to do.
Well, yeah, that's a very insightful point.
And you're just complaining about people's actions. You're not actually proposing to do anything about it other than to stick guns in their faces.
More guns, because there's already guns in their faces, and like you were saying, these things are already illegal.
Right.
I imagine that what he's attempting to address here is the Citizens United thing.
Tell me about the Citizens United thing. I've never heard about it.
It's a Supreme Court decision that says that super PACs, I think, basically large groups with lots of money aren't restricted by something due to free speech, so they can use their money as a form of speech to do political advertising. And so he wants to shut that down because the argument is that because corporations are so favored by whatever crony government is in place that they will use their power and influence to overwhelm the small guys who just have $5 or $10 or $20 to contribute to some socialist messiah promising free cookies and unicorns to all.
Right, because the world is unfair and we want the world to be fair. So from the way we see it, so we are going to use our guns to force people to be more fair. Is that about right?
Right, but there's the implicit in that argument that those corporations have that power in the current government structure, the current arrangement, the current system. And so he's basically saying that the current system is fucked. But he wants more of it?
Isn't that usually what a politician says when they want to get in power? The system is terrible.
Chaos!
Elect me to lead it. To make it more, All you're saying is we need more of it. All right, so should we move on to the second one or keep going on this first one?
No, we should move on because, like we were saying the other day, we thought that this would be 5 minutes for the whole thing, and that one was like 10 minutes all by itself.
Yeah, so we're talking to like at least an hour and a half for this whole thing. So, second one is trust science. Address climate change as a serious threat, not a punchline. So I don't know who's making it a punchline, but okay. My issue with this is, and I'm not an expert on climate change or what have you, I think climates change constantly. There seems to be an overall warming trend lately, which is fine. I don't know. There's also a lot of shenanigans going on with graphs. But the proposed solution is always guns in people's faces. It's always, you're a bad person, you do bad things, you need to offset your existence by paying us something. And then the cost of actually making any kind of a dent, trying to cool the world somehow, is astronomical. And those costs, it's never really considered. It's just like, we need to spend all this money. Well, that money could be going to any number of way better purposes than being footed away on this tiny, tiny, tiny little marginal increase or decrease in the temperature, whatever you wanted to affect. And then my, main issue with it is you're being forced to. This isn't a voluntary. We're going to force you to pay this on top of the money that we're already stealing.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm no expert either, but I have so many issues with this just because of the argument that, if it's tobacco companies sponsoring the science saying that cancer isn't caused by cigarettes, then no one believes it. Yet, if it's the government paying all these scientists to say that there's a problem that the government needs more power to solve, everyone just assumes that that's not, a contradiction.
Right, that's legitimate science. It must be perfectly good. Right.
Right, and then when you do look under the hood of the science, their argument is like 98% of scientists agree. But the reality is it's that they looked at a number of so-called studies, and all of these studies, as far as I know, are based on computer models, and they've been wrong in comparison to the reality. So much for computer models. But I believe that it was considered to be for that man-made, cause is if they didn't outright, not show an increase or something, like if it was even like a questionable thing, they counted it for them. So that's how they got up to the 98%. Let alone that science isn't something that is done by consensus. Like never before has anything been like, well, it's not like 9 out of 10 dentists use Oral-B or whatever. It's not an opinion. It's not a preference for a product. It's the data is either there or it's not. And even if it is there, like how do they know that they've isolated the issue? Because it's not like they're treating it in a vacuum, where you're only changing one variable. Like the world has millions and millions of things going on simultaneously all the time, just like the market. And that's why you can't really treat economics like it's physics, because you can't even treat physics like it's physics unless it's in a laboratory environment where you're controlling every variable but one.
Yeah, and again, their solution is always we need to take more money, we need more power. And somehow, since government gets things done, let's even grant to them that it's a real thing and that human beings are causing it. The costs involved to even affect the tiniest amount of change are massive. And that's not to say if you feel that there is such a thing and that human beings are causing it and you want to have less impact, go for it, man. Do your thing. I'm all for it. Whatever you want to do, live your life. But don't
buy less. Yep, live in the woods.
Yeah, go move out to a cabin in the woods out in eastern Washington. Do what you want to do. But when you start sticking a gun in somebody else's face saying, hey, you got to do what I'm doing, well, screw you, pal.
Yeah, indeed, screw you, pal. And the costs I'm sure you're talking about are just the overt costs, let alone the costs of, the decreased output, the fewer productive efforts, the fewer jobs, the fewer improvements in living standards, the less that people who live in poverty are raised out of poverty. You're talking about fewer people being able to eat or have clean water because you're throwing resources at something that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, you are creating more poverty. Look, wasn't it like Obama? And I could be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure. He was like closing coal plants. There's like some sort of a national limit. Is it part of like a Kyoto Protocol or a Paris Accord or whatever? I don't know. And they're like, well, we can only have so many coal plants. And then everybody was complaining that like China had X number of coal plants and the United States only had X number of coal plants. Well, you're forcibly shutting down coal plants that are improving people's lives. They're giving people jobs.
Right. Yeah. And ostensibly, compared to the alternatives, cheaper product, cheaper energy. And so when they do these types of things, it's the people down on the lower ends that are affected by these things the most. Oh, we've outlawed coal, so your electrical bill is going to go up 3 times.
Yeah, and your job at the coal plant is now gone. So enjoy that.
Yeah, enjoy the cold winter.
But we got some welfare for you, so enjoy that. All right, we're moving on to the next one, and we could talk probably whole episodes about each one of these, but we got this list to do. So the next one is a personal favorite of mine. We got end unfair pay, create a livable minimum wage, and enact pay equity for women. This is like a current kind of hot-button topic. I think it was like Equal Pay Day a couple days ago. And they were highlighting how, God, I wish I had that article in front of me right now, all the different ways in which women get unequal pay. And the article listed like 3 different ways, but it was really just 2 ways, and they were really just one way. It was women choose different fields than men generally, and they take more time off than men generally. And they work, few hours and whatnot. The article itself admitted that there's just men and women make different choices when it comes to employment. It was kind of amusing, but of course the line was all about how terrible how it's a real thing and whatnot. So create a livable minimum wage, which outlaws jobs, makes it so that it's absolutely creates more burden on the poorest people because you can't enter the marketplace. I got my first job out of high school sweeping floors. Now I don't know what employer is going to pay some high school kid, me, $15 to sweep a floor. Is there one? I can't imagine a $15 valued an hour floor sweeper. Maybe. Maybe there's a giant sweeper, really big floor. It might be worth it. But so that eliminates low-paying jobs. So it's harder and harder to enter the workforce. And then the pay equity for women. You're saying, I mean, it's what government does. They point guns at people. So I don't even know how they're going to do this, but I'm sure they're going to create some sort of law maybe saying that if you have a woman doing the same job as a man, you have to pay her the same or something. You're getting in the middle of voluntary relationships between employers and employees.
Let alone privacy issues.
Sure, go for it. What do you got?
Well, I mean, as far as I understand it, salary isn't something you talk about in polite company. What two people have agreed upon in an employer-employee relationship is a private arrangement that, like if Bill and Joe are sitting next to each other and Bill knows that he's getting $10,000 more than Joe, then Joe's going to be a little upset about that if he knows. You know what I'm saying? So it brings that issue, but, like you were saying, this pay gap doesn't even, legitimately exist when you control for factors that are clearly, made by the individuals. In fact, I find this kind of humorous. The pay gap disappears when you control for lesbian women.
That is amusing.
So you're going to
I saw an article. Okay, I saw an article recently.
But it's a lifestyle choice thing, and I don't mean like sexual preference. I mean it's you're going to raise kids or you're not. You're going to work more hours or you're not. You're going to do a more potentially dangerous job for a higher pay or you're not. You're going to be a school teacher or you're not. Yeah.
Like
these are the
I saw
things
an article
that you
that was talking about some SJW was complaining about how more and more employers aren't hiring women of childbearing age. They're heterosexual or whatever. And, I'm sure their solution is to create a law or something like that. I mean, you're getting into, this is at, what's it called when, you have to hire so many blacks and so many blah, blah, blah.
Well, an affirmative action.
Yeah. You're getting into some sort of affirmative action situation so that every company on the planet or in the country has to have so-and-so, so that you get to the point where you're not even hiring the best candidate. You're just you're checking off boxes. And you're like, well, I got to have a Hispanic female between 20 and 26 on the payroll. So here you go, you get the job. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny.
You're spending other people's money.
It's funny you mention that because this is just an anecdote, but from some Facebook posts from another person who went to the caucus.
Fucking caucus!
She said that they were voting in rounds of people to become the delegate that goes on, and the first round was men or women or whatever, and then there was men, and then they were voting on transgendered people or something along those lines. Like they were literally saying, okay, how are we going to divide up the 12 delegates that we can create? Well, let's do half men, half women. And then in the women group, let's make sure that one used to be a man. And in the man group, let's make sure that one used to be a woman. And let's make sure that, if we've got some gay people, that at least one or two of them on each side are gay. Like that's how they're dividing it up ahead of time.
Oh, that's awesome. I
don't want it to sound like I'm bashing gays or trans people or women or men or whatever. I'm just saying that it's pretty ridiculous to put all these categorizations up front. It's a way of dividing people and segregating them and keeping them at odds with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think it was maybe Tom Sowell who was talking about how it's insulting. Affirmative action is insulting. Like, you're hiring this guy just because he's black, not because he's the best candidate. Or just because you're white, or just because you're a woman, or whatever.
Right, and just think of it. If you truly could pay somebody less to do equal productive work, then you should do it. And that would bid up the price of their wage.
Yeah.
You should be bidding on that.
Yeah, like you said many times, if there really was a pay gap and you really could hire just as great of a force of all women that would give you a 18% count on wages, you would have a benefit, a market advantage, and you could put out your product for a cheaper price and take over the market. Why aren't people doing that?
And then, of course, that gap would go away if it existed at all, because more and more people would be vying for their services because there's an advantage to be had, Like, on the one hand, they say corporations are evil and they're only profit-seeking. They'll do whatever. They'll step on their own grandmothers to get a profit. Yet, on the other hand, they're saying, but they're leaving a 23% profit on the table over here for some unknown reason, for some bigoted reason, because they're racists or because they're misogynists. Like, make up your fucking mind.
Yeah, what are they? Are they misogynists or are they greedy? Which you can't have both.
Fucking chaos!
All right, next one. Create new jobs, because government creates jobs. Invest.
Wait a minute. I thought we just talked about destroying jobs. Now he wants to create jobs?
Yeah. Daniel, didn't you read this? Yeah, he's creating new jobs, Daniel. Invest in education, renewable energy, and infrastructure. So if you invest in those things, it creates jobs, right? Because government, there will be some winners, yeah.
Well, I think
go ahead.
It's a curious use of the word invest, because I'm sure he means government expenditures. I'm sure he doesn't mean private saved capital that is devoted to something that may be a profitable venture.
Right. No, this is what he means. This is what he means, to throw government money at a thing. Invest in education, renewable energy, and infrastructure. And here's what he's saying is that, it's not profitable to invest in education, so government has to do it. It's not profitable to invest in renewable energy because government has to do it. Or infrastructure because,
government doesn't allow any competition.
Right. They don't allow competition.
You could say that in the education space as well. There are private schools, but they're hardly let alone by government.
Yeah, you're going to have to unplug and replug in your microphone. You just started garbling.
All right, how are we doing now?
Yeah, now you sound like you're in tin can.
How about now? Better?
Now you're better. Yeah, you're way better now. Okay.
All right, so I'll just restate that last point. So infrastructure, they're not allowing any competition. Very similar in education, though there are private schools, but they're hardly let alone by the government.
Mm-hmm.
And then the renewable energy is just ridiculous. Like, if it's worth doing, somebody will do it. If people are willing to pay for it, then somebody will see an opportunity there and do it.
Yeah. It's not at the point yet where it's profitable, so entrepreneurs are doing it. And some are, but it's not ubiquitous to the point where it's overtaking other forms of energy. So, it's not as efficient as other forms of energy yet. Maybe it will be in the future. But we definitely don't need government to go in and tell us what we ought to do.
Well, and of course, all the money that they're talking about is stolen either from the present generation or the future generations at the point of the gun. So, it's not even as if they're just sitting on the sidelines and have their own money that is legitimately gotten that they're going to throw away on these things. No, it's stolen money that they're going to throw away on these things.
Right. If they were entrepreneurs and they were like, well, I want to invest in renewable energy, man, go for it. Have at it. You earned that money. Enjoy. Maybe you'll develop something really cool and special and change everybody's lives for the better. But that's not what they're doing.
Right. And I'm sure there's a big interest in renewable energy. I see people all the time getting solar panels and driving around in Priuses or Volts or Leafs. There's a lot of people who are in the market for that kind of thing, and they're willing to pay more. Granted, there is a lot of government involvement in those things today because they're getting, like tax breaks or rebates or whatever when they buy those things. And I don't want to get caught saying I'm arguing against tax breaks. No, any elimination of tax is a good thing. But they're clearly trying to incentivize something, and whenever there's a tax cut or tax break, from the statist point of view, that's considered a cost to government. They always consider that a loss in revenue, so they consider it a cost. Like, how much is this tax cut going to cost?
Right, and it interferes with the market. You're talking about, well, we're going to dump all this money and we're going to make this thing cheaper. And then that screws up the natural market. It's like with farm subsidies. When government's like, well, we're going to subsidize the hell out of corn or whatever. then it just totally interferes with what all the farmers are doing, and it screws up with the prices with everything else. So if they're going to go in and artificially make the cost of these renewable energy sources cheaper, well, you're affecting other people and other energy providers. But they don't see that.
No, yeah, and to touch on the farm subsidy one, there's actually a really great bit by Rothbard on price controls in one of his lectures. I think it's from 1972. It's on the Read Rothbard site in the introduction section. And he says that you've got price controls by subsidizing the farmers, by getting them, cheap loans and things like that to help make it easier to get fertilizers and irrigation and mechanized equipment so they can increase output. But on the other hand, they're also paying the farmer not to produce whatever so that they can keep the prices of that product high, so they want to reduce the supply. Or they're buying the excess amount and putting it into warehouses to rot, or they're selling it to the Soviet Union at the time, or they're doing any number of things. But it's crazy because the same bureau, the same department of government is both paying farmers to produce more and more efficiently, and at the same time having them produce less and paying them for it. Like, oh, you got to take 20% of your land out of production. Oh, you've got to,
right,
sell it
because
to
they're
the government.
trying to do that Keynesian market control mechanism. A good friend of ours, Bruce, his uncle, who was a farmer his whole life, and I think, towards the end of his life, government came in and said, hey, how about we pay you to not do anything? And he did. He just took the money, and he's like, okay, I'm retired. And he took that government money, and he stopped producing. How is that benefiting anybody? You have this perfectly good land you could use, but now the government comes in and pays you to not use it. And that's just one anecdotal instance. I'm sure it happens all the time.
Right, and it's all an effort to keep prices higher. Because if there were more supply, then the price would come down of, wheat or pork or beef or whatever. And so their goal is to protect the farmers by having price controls, keep the prices high for the consumers. Yet the consumers are also getting taxed to pay for all these subsidies and to buy product to let it rot, and they're paying the high price.
Yeah, the consumers, who are also the taxpayers, are getting double screwed. Yeah, it's good times. Government's awesome. Come on, folks. Government's awesome. All right, moving on. Next one on the list is rebuild our infrastructure. So it's our infrastructure because we collectively own it, right, Bernie? Repair our roads, bridges, water, and electric systems. So, they're trying to get you with this whole, hey, you own part of it. You got to chip in and blah, blah, blah. Well, these are all roads, bridges, water, and electric systems. These are all government monopolies. They don't allow competition. So we don't even know if these are the best roads, bridges, water, and electric systems we could possibly have.
Well, yeah, and there's an admission here that there must be something wrong with this infrastructure if it needs to be rebuilt and repaired. So the current system of government monopoly control over these things is not working.
Right, yeah, there have been reports of massive, I forget what it was, I think they were doing bridges at the time. I think when there was that bridge collapse, there was a couple of bridge collapses like in the last year or two, even one up here in Washington. And they did some kind of report about the horrific state of the bridges in the country. And it listed some huge number of bridges that were way out of date and way in need of repair, like in the thousands and tens of thousands of bridges. So clearly, it's a shit show. And they're saying, yes, we need to fail forward. We need more money because we can't do it because we're inept.
Yeah, I just like how there's this built-in admission that the current method isn't working, but they want to just pile on more. Yeah. It's like the state-controlled roads, bridges, water, and electrical systems are all shit. So let's continue that process and just throw more money at it.
Yeah. So maybe if we throw enough money at it, maybe it'll be just a little bit less shitty, I guess, is their argument.
Right, because there's no, waste in government or graft or corruption or, let alone the market inefficiencies. The market no longer being able to function, so you don't find the inefficiencies and drive out the costs and all of those other benefits of competition.
Right. Well, you'd actually have to produce if you were in a private sector. You'd actually have to compete. But when you have a government-controlled monopoly, you could be the laziest piece of crap and still have a job. So then they say, well, we just need more money, which is always the case.
Yeah, well, weren't we talking the other day about the public school system that spent the most per student in their district, and at the same time also had the worst performing results when it comes to test scores or literacy or graduation rates?
Uh-huh.
So clearly money's the problem. And isn't money the great evil? Like, seriously, like point one was money is a problem. And now they're saying, well, you know, end unfair pay, so that means we want more money for people, but money's a problem. And now they're saying, and we want more money for shitty infrastructure, that we don't allow competition, but money's the problem. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, they can't make up their mind on anything.
All right,
money's
evil, right?
No, it's evil. It's evil, but you deserve other people's money. Even though
if it's so evil, why do you want to steal it from people?
Yep.
Not to get rid of it, right?
Right now.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Next one. Get off fossil fuels. Promote clean energy. Like, so we already kind of covered this one a little bit, but promote clean energy like solar and geothermal. Again, I'll just repeat myself. If these things were already profitable, an entrepreneur would go in and invest in this sort of thing of their own free will. Forcing everybody to promote it is immoral, and like for the reasons we already said. You have anything else to add on that one?
Well, it's just that I think that there's already enough of a demand for these types of different alternative energies out there. I mean, it's like there's a lot of people who are into that shit, you know? And if that's not enough of a market for somebody to get into without having all this government coercion, it's fucking ridiculous. You know? Mm-hmm. You already have a rabid audience seeking to give you money, more money than they would pay otherwise for alternatives. And they're willing to do it so that they have the little, you know, green leaf on their car, or they have the solar panels on their house. Oh, did I ever tell you about my idea for solar panels?
No. Is this like fake solar panels just so you can look cool?
Yeah, faux solar panels. Just status symbol, baby. You know, if it's going to cost you $5,000 to put legitimate things on your roof, I'll sell you fake ones for $1,000. There
you go. Get some Chinese knockoffs just to look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
You know, why not?
Yeah, it is a fair amount of status symbol going into those things, especially in places like California and whatnot. Okay, here's another.
Back in the day, taking like an old Volkswagen chassis and putting a Porsche body kit on it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on to probably my single favorite one. Well, no, there's another one coming up that is really awesome. These are all really good, but make college affordable, debt relief for grads, free tuition at public universities. So, I graduated from old WWU, Western Washington University, for those in the know. And I'm not going to say that I did the most with my degree. I'm not going to say it was totally useless. But if you're talking about free tuition at public universities for everybody just for living here, you're already devaluing – well, there's a lot of things going on here. First of all, you're already saying that the first 12 years of their life, or the first 12 years of schooling, you haven't prepared them for anything. So
you're admitting failure right there.
You're admitting failure. And then you're saying, well, we need 4 more years. So here you go. Here's 4 free years of more government schooling, or at least more government-ish. I don't know. There's quasi-government. There's state schools, so yeah. So here's 4 more years. But then at one point in time, you know, those college degrees could actually be seen as, geez, you went to college? Oh, that's pretty something. Well, you might be smart. Now, if everybody and their mother goes for free, then what kind of value is that going to have in the marketplace?
Yeah, approximately dick.
Yeah, fuck all is what it's going to have. Oh, you went to UW. Well, congratulations. So did everybody else.
Fucking goddamn!
Now, what do you think he's saying here, what he means here for debt relief for grads? Do you think you're just going to get some sort of, on the percentage? They're going to force the banks to have a lower percentage rate on the return on college loans? Or you think it's just going to be free money in the mail? Or what are you thinking here?
No, I have no idea, but, you know, debt relief sounds to me like a debt jubilee, like you no longer owe anything, whether it's the government paying the banks or the I know that one of the big talking points with the Sanders crew is that the U.S. Department of Education is making a profit on student debt. And so I think that's the hot button issue. So they're basically saying, well, because it's the federal government, they don't need to make a profit on it. So we'll just relieve that because it's all underwritten by the Department of Education. Like, I don't know if it's all the loans, but it's a huge chunk of the loans that if the student doesn't pay them, then they're still guaranteed by the government. And so that's why these banks are even willing to make these loans.
Really?
Because imagine
these loans are all guaranteed. Basically, like during the housing bubble, when all the shaky loans were guaranteed.
Yeah, the Fannie and Freddie loans. Yep, similar deal.
Yeah, they're all guaranteed. Yeah. Okay. So that's
how many loans do you think? How many loans do you think would be made for somebody majoring in social justice?
Or women's studies or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
like I want. And I don't even know how much tuition is these days, but you hear about people routinely coming out with six figures in debt. Like what bank is going to say, oh, you're getting a degree in communications? Sure, we'll give you a loan for $100,000 that you'll never be able to pay back ever in your life.
Right.
And we haven't even touched on the fact that the prices wouldn't be anywhere near where they are if the government wasn't meddling in the situation to begin with. Like, yes, college is expensive. Many things are expensive because of meddling. And that could be, a 5-hour topic, so maybe we just move on.
Okay.
But if our one fan wants to know more, let us know, and we'll do that 5-hour episode.
All right, so the next one is expand Social Security, raise the withholding limits, and increase benefits. So what is he talking about here with the raise the withholding limits?
If you make over $125,000, any income beyond that doesn't get counted in Social Security.
Okay, so this would benefit people making that much and above? Is that?
They're getting an undue benefit now by having less of their money stolen from them.
Right. And so they want to eliminate that, or they want to increase that?
They want to tax the shit out of everyone as much as possible.
That's generally what he's going for, yes. And then increase benefits. So just basically just tax more and then give more? Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah. In a system that's already insolvent and has no money and is going hand to mouth to pay current retirees, let alone the fact that there's a generation that is very large that is just now retiring that's larger than the generation prior to it or, just below it.
Right. I mean, the whole Social Security system is a scam. I mean, they sold you a bill of sale that said you're going to put all this money in a big pile, and then when you retire, we're going to give it back to you. But that's not the case. They took the money and they spent it immediately, and now the current workforce is paying for you.
Right, but everyone believes that they're just getting their own money back, so they don't have any qualms with it. Like, oh yeah, of course I want my money back, so I'm going to accept the payments.
Right. Right. All right, you got anything else on that one?
Another 5 hours of material.
Okay.
But we can leave it at that. Expanding an already broken system that is immoral to begin with is no solution to a broken system. Right.
Yeah, if I had a choice, right? You go to an employer, you sign a W-2, whatever. Say they said, hey, do you not want to be stolen from for Social Security? I'd be like, of course. I'd rather take all this money. I can invest it better than I can, and they don't even invest it. Anyway.
Well, according to their thieving of language, they are investing it.
So enact single-payer health care as the next. Treat health care as a right, not a profit center. So anytime anyone says they have a right, what they're actually saying is, you owe me your labor. You owe me your money. You owe me some sort of service. And I take real umbrage with that. That is saying that somebody else owes you something. Somebody else has to provide a service for you. This goes in line with the whole outrage over the gay cake thing. The guy didn't want to make the cake for the gay couple. Well, government steps in. You have to associate with these people. You have to make this cake for them. We could do a whole episode just that. But saying that you have the right to something, a positive right, not just the right to not be fucked with, not the right to be attacked, but a positive right, like that somebody else owes me X, Y, or Z, you name it. That is, well, it's very arrogant and presumptuous. I mean, what are the adjectives I can use here? It's, I don't know, it's like a child. You're just like, that's mine. You have to give me that because I say so. They don't see that pointing a gun at somebody and forcing them to give them something. They don't know that they're thieves, that they're actual bank robbers. They're actual carjackers saying you have to do a thing because of some perceived social justice or something like that, like, hey, we're all human beings. We're all in this together. You should have to pay for health care because health should just be a thing that everybody has. And if you don't have it, you deserve it for being alive. And therefore, this doctor who has hundreds of thousands of debt and works and went to 8 years of school, all this stuff to be great in the field, now he's like, well, now you have to work for free, buddy. Sorry. That's my little rant on it. I'm sure you got a rant. Let's hear what you got to say, Daniel.
Well, there's so many things. I mean, there's been 100 years of intervention in healthcare that has restricted the supply of healthcare providers, thus increasing the costs over, like I was saying, decades and decades. And all of those things were due to government intervention. And so now what they're saying is, well, let us intervene even more, drive out money from the whole equation, let's not have anything be profitable, code for worth doing, and let's make everyone basically a slave to everyone else. Like I don't see the advantage of a system where you disincentivize people from even becoming doctors, and you make the demand for health-related services increase because there's no limit. Now there's nothing holding you back from getting every little thing checked out or every little test being run, even if it's totally unnecessary. And, this may sound a little bit harsh because, of course, if you have a problem or a loved one who has a problem, you want to get it figured out. You want to get solved. You don't want to see people suffer or die. Those are terrible, terrible things. But having more government involvement is going to only make it worse. The fact that hundreds of thousands of people have died because the FDA won't approve drugs in a timely manner, or because it takes $200 million to get one approved to begin with, let alone all the other issues of restricting the supply of doctors like I started out with. Like how many more people could be seen if there were more doctors available, or if somebody who didn't need to have like Cadillac level education to, remove your splinter or do some stitches. Let's say a nurse practitioner type person could do all of those things, or somebody who, only had like, a lower, license or whatever. But those things aren't really allowed. Sure, through the cracks these days, certain things are now kind of being permitted to alleviate some of the pressures on the system, but it's definitely a flawed and broken system, and this solution is no solution at all. It's only going to make it worse.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, there are some free market facilities in the United States where you can kind of like order a la carte, like procedures, and they take cash, and it is light years cheaper than the system. Like all the things you said, and then the whole idea that you're demonizing profit. Like you said, profit shows you that you're doing a good job, that you're providing value, that it's worth doing. If you take away the profit incentive and then you're just forcing people to work for and not see the benefit of their labor, then you're going to end up with the same reason why all socialist paradises fail.
Right, and didn't he say at the beginning, like he wants to end unfair pay? So if I'm doing something that's profitable, but you want to end my ability to make a profit on it, isn't that a bit unfair?
It's so contradictory. He's saying, yeah, and unfair pay, but yet we're going to make it unfair pay for if you're being a doctor. I mean, what if you're a female doctor? What happens then? Does like the universe explode or implode?
Yeah, right. And one of the reasons the doctors were making so much money, like when you and I were growing up, it's like, what are the rich people jobs? Doctors, lawyers. Well, one of the reasons that there are even the rich people jobs is because of the restrictions on the supply of doctors. If there were more and more doctors, then there would be less and less demanded on each one. Like there would be competition for prices, there would be competition for service level. It's the whole market benefit, the whole market mechanism is destroyed in this situation, and but that's one of the reasons why doctors were rich people jobs back when we were growing up. Like they were on the receiving end of some undue benefit.
Sure, you have a semi-monopoly situation where you're restricting the supply of new people entering the market, like with the taxing situation or any number of industries where they compel the government to get some sort of, anti-competition, some sort of protection against new competition, and it just restricts the supply of people into that market, and then you have decrease in quality of care or quality of service, and increase in supply and cost. Decrease in supply, increase in cost.
Right, and we have not even touched on the health insurance model. That they're treating it as if routine maintenance is something that's an insurable event. Like you're going to get oil change insurance on your car, tire insurance on your car. It's.
Yeah, don't get me started on you have to have health insurance either. That's a whole other moral question.
Right, but insurance is meant to alleviate risk. You're breaking risk amongst a large pool of people so that in the unlikely event that somebody actually has the event befall upon them, then the funds are there to pay for it. It's like, you have a neighborhood and there's 100 houses, and statistically speaking, one house will burn down every year. So all 100 people, it's in their benefit to all pay a small sum so that if they are that 1% unlucky, that they will have insurance to cover that, that risk from happening. But in a health model,
that risk is my choice. If I choose to not get health insurance or not get fire insurance, that's my decision to make, not somebody else's decision to make for me.
Right, and then if your house burns down, then it's on you to replace it.
Absolutely. That's my risk.
Yeah, and your choice. You save the, small fee that it would have probably been. And,
sure.
Health insurance is ungodly expensive for a number of reasons, which I don't know if we have time to get into now. But, I don't want to equate insurance as being a cheap thing. Actual insurance for an actual, risk diffusion event is rather inexpensive.
Mm-hmm. Sure, no, if you get, flood insurance or whatever, I suppose it depends on where you're at. But, yeah, those kinds of, catastrophic type things where there's a very small chance are actually very expensive, like term life insurance, I think. It's like a couple bucks a month or something.
Yeah, so I think we beat that one up quite a bit. We only have two left. Just two left.
Oh, some good ones. End systemic racism. Address racial inequities throughout American culture. So there's all kinds of stuff we could say about this, but I think it's hilarious that they would even say that this is sort of a thing that's impossible for some person to do, especially with some person sticking a gun in someone's face to force them to do. So, end racism, well, they've already argued for systemic racism earlier when they were talking about eliminating jobs and then creating other jobs, but eliminating, livable minimum wage, prices the lowest income workers out of the market, which is often people that have certain races addressed to them. Now, address race equities throughout American culture. What does that even mean, Daniel? What is that? Is that forcing people to interact? We're talking about we can't have choice of association, or what do you think they're talking about here? Because this is just stupid.
Well, I think they're attempting to remake the culture of the country. Like they want to reshape and remold people's thoughts and opinions.
With what? propaganda, with what? Social programs of some kind? I mean, what? They've done nothing but destroy the family without their... Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'm sure they'll use whatever's at their disposal. Any excuse to increase their budgets, create new departments, new programs, spend more money on ridiculous stuff. And that's not really like a
counteract,
specific
counterproductive
answer. Yeah, but like so many of these things, like you were just saying, they destroyed the American family. With the whole war on poverty. That's one of the big things that Stefan Molyneux talks about, and Thomas Sowell, and I think Walter Williams as well. And when Steph says it, people say racist, but when Sowell or Williams say it, they say racist until they see that they're black guys.
Yeah. But yeah, Walt Williams and Sowell, they've eloquently said how the welfare system has destroyed the family of the black man, black families in the United States. And it makes perfect sense. You get paid free government money for every kid you have, but if you got a man in your life that, kicks in a certain amount or whatever, it just takes away your benefits. So I've got a friend who has a couple of kids and who has a boyfriend, whose boyfriend proposed to her, and he didn't make enough to completely offset all the government benefits that were coming in. So all it would have done is reduce the benefits and actually reduce the quality of her life, so she turned the guy down. And that happens all the time. That's one anecdote, I understand. But like you've talked about with Steph, he actually has the statistics, and Sowell and Williams I'm sure do too. But the welfare war on poverty does anything but. If you want more poverty, you subsidize poverty. You subsidize anything you want more of. You put your dollars to that thing, and you get more. And they sure have gotten more poverty and more welfare recipients, and it has destroyed families.
Well, yeah, and that's in the nature of bureaucracy, is that, they want to have a reason to keep their department open, keep their position, keep their little fiefdom. So you need more people working for you and in your program. You're not going to go to a job that's going to eliminate your own job if you're successful.
Right.
Like, if you do a good job, there won't be a need for your job anymore. Even though what they're doing isn't eliminating poverty at all. But, the one thing that I really love about this whole poverty thing is that it's a moving bar. They change the goalposts, move the goalposts. It's no longer like a certain living standard, like running water, whatever, food. It's now, you got to be in the bottom quintile, the 20% of whatever the average is. Well, let's say the average is $1 million, 200,000. Right. That's the poverty level now, son.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense. Right.
Yeah, talk about the quality of life from, like, say, the medieval times to now is amazingly. For the poorest people in medieval times versus the poorest people now, the quality of life is way better.
The kings of medieval times lived worse than people on welfare today in the bottom 20th percentile. The people today living in the 20th percentile, they probably have a TV or two. They probably have a car or some mode of transportation. They probably have an iPhone. They probably have free health
care.
Video
game systems, a car,
a roof,
motorized carrier that they can travel around in.
Now, there are homeless people. There are mentally, unstable people, and that's terrible. And, there's a whole rant I can do on what I think the cause of some of that is.
Me too.
Hint, government.
Yeah.
But to move the bar and then claim that even though all the boats have risen, but because some percentage of that group, which will always exist, there's always going to be a 20% at the bottom and a 20% at the top, even if everyone's making $1 million and $1,001. You can still mathematically carve up that group.
And their solution is always to introduce force and coercion. It's like it's not an actual solution. People don't respond well to getting a gun stuck in their face. It doesn't make them happy. It doesn't make them productive. And it's not going to actually solve anything. I don't think that sticking a gun in someone's face solves a problem. It creates new problems.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've beat that one up a bit, so we can probably move on to the last and probably your favorite. No, we've already done your favorite.
No, we already did my favorites, but this is one. This is a good one. So the last one is close tax loopholes. Make corporations and the very wealthy pay their fair share. Those greedy assholes who just don't want to be stolen from are a bunch of sons of bitches, and they're not agreeing to the contract, which totally exists and is really a real thing. And these cheats need to go and pay up because we deserve their money. They owe us their money. Yeah, the whole idea that taxation isn't theft. Okay, let's give them even that. Now let's say that they owe their fair share. Okay, what is their fair share? It's somehow a higher proportion, right? So, okay, here's a wealthy guy. He sits in the same house. Let's have a poor guy sitting in one house, and we'll have a wealthy guy sitting in the house next door. The exact same house. He's the exact same number of goods and services, drives the exact same car as the poor guy, but for some reason the wealthy guy just has like billions of bucks sitting in his bank, and the poor guy has got like $1.50 sitting in his bank. So how is it fair for the wealthy guy to get stolen from, let's say, $1 million, and the poor guy gets from like a couple of pennies? I mean, where's this fair thing coming into it? I know they're all about making things fair at the point of a gun, but explain to me what the fairness is in even their insane scenario.
Right, and there's nothing really to argue there, but we do have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world, one of the highest regulatory burdens, environmental regulation burdens, union burdens, labor law burdens in the world, and all of those things disincentivize corporations and entrepreneurs from creating things in this country. Not that that really matters per se, like, borders are just imaginary lines. But, if you want to say you want to create jobs, yet you want to tax the shit out of people who are already being taxed the shit out of, and you want to regulate the shit out of people already being regulated the shit out of, you're not going to create more jobs. You're going to create less jobs.
Yeah, you de-incentivize people from actually producing goods and services in this country, and you've got people that are decrying it, saying that these corporations, they left to the country and they went to other countries because they made more of a profit in those other countries. But yet, then the exact same time, you're like, well, let's tax the shit out of them. What do you even understand what you're saying? You're decrying that they're actually leaving and saying, oh, these greedy corporations are terrible. They left and took our jobs away and gave them to some other guy in a different country. And yet you're also saying, well, these greedy people need to be taxed more. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And
no sense.
They also say that sweatshops are bad. That all those jobs going overseas are to sweatshops, and that's terrible.
Yeah, that those people are being forced to work in those shops. Like, they're not doing that. It's a voluntary relationship. They don't understand that voluntary relationships, by definition, improve both lives involved. If there's a voluntary relationship, it's frustrating, Daniel. Like that the child welfare or the child working condition, pictures and that sort of thing. Those kids, and a couple of people made those good comments that I appreciated, and other people were decrying and saying how horrible it was. But people that were saying it was horrible kept repeating that these kids were forced to do X, Y, or Z. That these kids were forced to be doing that. Which, what are they even talking about? This kid, it's voluntary to get a job. And I know anarcho-socialists would disagree with me on that because they think that everything fall out of the sky for free. But it's a voluntary relationship that these kids are improving their lives. Maybe the parents are forcing them to, and I would be against that. I am against absolutely force being used. But you're talking about people that are working these really, not the greatest conditions for not the pay, but because they see it as saving their lives, because it beats the alternative of not having a job, of dying of starvation on the street.
Yeah, it's funny how leftists are all about pro-choice, but they only mean it in one respect, not in all the other respects of choice.
Good pull right there, Daniel. We're pro this one choice. Anytime you want to make other choice, we're going to force it and make it illegal. If you want to take drugs, sorry, we're going to stick a gun in your face and put you in jail if you want to take a drug. Yeah. Never mind the fact that these drugs are completely arbitrary because, maybe we don't control the means of production and all these.
Yeah. So my uncle was at my mom's birthday party over the weekend, and he asked me, what I thought about Bernie Sanders, and I was trying to be nice and not really engage too much.
Yeah.
But I was like, his take was, even if he wins, he won't get much passed through Congress. He won't be able to accomplish much. And I was like, you know what? Even if everything he wanted he got,
good.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that.
Even if he got everything he wanted, it wouldn't work because these things do not work. You're not going to create more jobs by creating a huge minimum wage and destroying opportunity for people who have, who are new to the workforce, who don't have the skills yet. There's no opportunity for them to build the skills. Your failing schools haven't gotten them to the point where they're employable, especially at those rates, and let alone giving them free college to fill them with more worthless crap and creating more and more of these people who have college degrees now that are even less meaningful than they are today or 10 years ago or 50 years ago.
Well said. Nice.
And rant. I could go on and on.
That's true. Yeah, even if all those things came into effect, and people need to hear this, even if all these things that he wants, he gets into effect, for the reasons that we just described, they're all terrible. They're all not going to work. They're contradictory. They contradict themselves over and over again. He's cry money in one time and then say it's awesome the next time, and then everybody else deserves other people's money all the time. None of it makes any sense, but it all sounds good. It all sounds like, the good liberal lefty that wants, trust science and shouldn't have money in politics, and the world should be fair and create new jobs, and you should rebuild.
Let me ask you this. The you of 10, 15, even 20 years ago, looking at this list, what does that person think?
He's probably thinking it's a good thing. He probably would have given that same answer that your uncle said, probably like, that the government's probably would, the Republicans would stop him or something, or wouldn't work with him, and he'd only get some of the things done. Because these are campaign promises. These are empty promises, and they never do this stuff anyway. They're just saying it to get into office so they can, get paid to sit around and do whatever. Now, the idea that even if these things do get in place, they are terrible. They do not work. They will not work. They are unworkable by definition most of the time. And the market does a way better job of any of this stuff. And other things just shouldn't be. End racism at the point of a gun? What are you even talking about? Half the stuff is immoral. And the fact that government itself is immoral, so in fact, by definition, anything it does is immoral. And then you're saying that, close tax loopholes, so steal from people more, so that's horrible. And racism, how? Stupid.
Right, and all they're doing is creating opportunities for racism. If you let the market dictate who your customers are going to be and how much you can charge, then you're going to want every customer you can get. But when you put limitations or price ceilings or floors on things, then other factors come into play in your decision-making process. And, of course, you're going to, segregate people into other groups by these programs. You're already telling them they're all victims and they're all unique and special and that they need to be protected in some way. So now they're going to self-identify against the other. It's the whole divisive nature of politics just to begin with that creates this differentiated, situation where everyone's against each other.
Yeah, you're talking about, one good, clear example of that is the situation of taxis in need, where a black man could taxi, or they wouldn't drive to Harlem, or what have you. Well, open up that market, and you got all kinds of taxi drivers driving in there, and you better believe that there would be people that would be driving people to Harlem and picking up black people left and right and whatnot. But if you can afford not to pick up that black guy, then yeah, you will make racist choices or or choices based on that.
Right. Maybe they want to stick around Manhattan. So they're like, well, that guy probably doesn't live in Manhattan, so I'm not going to pick him up. It's not a racist thing. It's an assumption, based on the characteristics of the person. Is that bad? Maybe. But if he didn't know that he could just get another ferry down the street that isn't going to take him to Harlem or take him to Queens or the Bronx or wherever, he's going to do that. He's gonna make what he thinks is his best choice at the time.
Right. And he's got a protected, essentially, position with any competition. There's more people that want rides than are there to give them, so you're not fighting over fares. If there was actually competition for fares, you better believe it. You'd grab any fare you could. Anyway.
All right. So my cousin who went to the thing. Hold on here.
Oh, is there some current post?
Yeah. What was it? What was the thing called that he went to?
Caucus.
Fucking caucus!
He posted a Bob Marley quote, and I think that this is interesting, and I want your take on this.
All right.
Quote, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively." End quote.
Okay.
Thought.
Well, I've got thoughts. If you are impacting and other people around you positively, you could say that that is an analogy to capitalism, and that you would be profitable, and so you would accumulate wealth. So those things could be hand in hand. I know what they're trying to say, like, the Gandhi kind of spiritual or person that is just an awesome guy. You want to hang around, and he doesn't have much money, but you really enjoy his company or what have you, or he's affecting the world in other ways that you can't necessarily monetize or are difficult to monetize or impossible to monetize thanks to government. Give me the
So you broke up at the end there.
Oh, could you say that quote again?
The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively.
You see, the integrity, I would argue that statists essentially have zero. They're not living principled lives. They're living like pragmatic lives. So whatever is best for them in that given situation is what they do, regardless of who gets hurt. So when they say integrity, I find that hard to apply when you vote for guns to be put in people's faces on one hand and vote for things to be stolen and given to you. I don't find that having any integrity whatsoever. You can have positive effects in people's lives, absolutely, and you don't necessarily have to be making a ton of money. I mean, I've been poor my whole life. I don't know the effect I've had on other people's lives. Maybe it's been positive. I'm sure some people it's been negative. I don't know. Measuring this, greatness is in the eye of the beholder.
Value's subjective and can't be measured.
Who you find great and who I find great, maybe two different people, and for different reasons. Like you say, it's absolutely subjective. Marley has good quotes. I'm not sure what this guy means it to be, what your cousin is doing. I find it hard to,
He's basically saying that money is bad and that it's other things that are more important.
I mean, if you
redistribution's okay.
Right. I mean, if you don't see money as value gained by value providing, if you see it as a something to be something as a corrupting force but these are all issues with government. I mean, corporations.
Isn't that almost all of Bernie's complaints are about government?
Yeah, but the solution is always more government. People's complaints about corporations are not necessarily. I mean, they're always saying that they do horrible things and whatnot, but yet they freely support them. But usually it comes from the corporations as being favored by government for certain reasons, or not favored, or getting tax breaks from this reason, or their collusion with government and their using of government is usually where their corruption lies. But yet the corporations don't get the pass. The government gets the pass. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but as a former lefty liberal guy who used to think government was, just the way things got done, I guess I could see it. They're kind of vilifying money in that quote a little bit.
I guess my point would be that I think he's wrong, in that the amount of wealth you accumulate legitimately is a measure of how much you've affected other people's lives positively.
I would agree with that. Sure. I mean, there's a
not the only measure, but
not the only measure. Sure. Right.
It is a measure because you were providing a value to somebody who deemed it, whatever your product or service, worthy enough for them to become your customer.
Yeah. I would absolutely agree with that.
All right. So I'm going to have to wrap this up. I've been yelled at twice already.
Okay.
There's so much more I wanted to go over, but I think that this little cheat sheet that I pulled off the wall at the local mini-mart was more than enough material.
No, we could do a couple more episodes on each one of these things. I mean, that was some brief stuff, but I think we kept the pace going, so that was good. Whoa, can you believe we said that? Oh, my goodness.
Outrageous. Blaspheme. I hope you guys enjoyed our very first podcast about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff in the news. So, I mean, we will maybe talk a little bit about politics, but just because that's like the climate and the culture in this country, and you can't get away from it, especially with the election coming up. But also, we intend to talk about like just news events taken from a Rothbardian perspective, or our perspective based on our Rothbardian ideas. And so expect a wide variety of topics to come out of us. Right, Daniel?
That's not the only thing coming out of us, but it's the only thing you're going to get on this podcast.
Aw. Don't disappoint the listeners.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, everybody. The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.